Right, well, I'll declare the meeting open and I'll invite James Daniels to make the karakia. Kia ora. I don't have any apologies at this stage, so shall we just accept that Jake is an apology for lateness? So would someone like to move that? Mike Davidson, seconded Pauline Cotter. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. The declarations of interest, there are none. So I would just like to open the meeting with a few words. The Prime Minister said on Monday that she had a very keen sense of the magnitude of the crisis we are facing in this country's history. We feel that too in our cities and districts across the country. This is unprecedented in our lifetimes. An invisible threat that we have a small window of opportunity to stop turning into the devastation we have seen it inflict overseas has taken its toll already on the response that our country needs to make. The fact that we need to take this seriously has been demonstrated with the exponentially rising cases of infections and the death toll it has wreaked across the world. It has been hard to communicate with some people the importance of following this call to vigilance, this call to arms in the war against COVID-19. And I won't read the email I received from an irate resident after he received notice that our libraries and our community facilities would close on Saturday. That's why I fully support the call to go to level 4, and I'm grateful we were given the time to put these arrangements in place. I want to thank councillors.
It's delayed.
Yeah, I can see it on the live stream, but no audio coming through on the phone.
Can you stop talking amongst yourselves, please, because you're coming through the whole council chamber and onto the live stream. Thank you.
Okay, we can't hear you through the conference call.
You should be able to hear us now.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I won't start again. I've simply described the nature of the crisis we're facing. I want to thank councillors for staying away from the building to enable the organisation to make final preparations for the lockdown, giving the organisation the space to focus on ensuring that essential services can continue to be delivered in a secure environment has been vital, as it has enabling those that can work from home to have the ability to do so. I congratulate the Chief Executive and the Incident Management Leader for the smooth transition. We are aware that the IMT was stood up at the end of January and that preparations have been well advanced for this eventuality. It is our turn as the elected leaders of the city to offer our commitment to offering good governance in this time of crisis, mindful that we are anticipating that the government will declare a national state of emergency imminently. We need to give the organisation breathing space, which actually the lockdown period allows. The government is fully aware of the challenge of the statutory obligations we cannot meet in a lockdown, and will be moving to resolve these in a considered and appropriate way. And I have just received a letter from the Minister of Local Government setting out the challenges that we face in relation to meetings that have obligations of some personnel being in attendance in a physical sense, and allowing for certain matters to be addressed. So the government is very well aware of the challenges that councils are facing. That does mean, though, that we do need to take steps to make arrangements for the interim period. The people of Christchurch will want our reassurance that our decision making will be open and transparent, and it will. We are not going to have the benefits of live streaming, but we will record meetings and we will make those recordings available. We will provide decisions publicly as soon as we possibly can. Many people have reflected on the challenges we have already faced in Christchurch and our surrounding districts: the earthquakes, the floods, the fire and the terrorist attack we experienced last year. None of these was like the other. Each time we responded in a way that built on our previous experience. From a community perspective, it was natural to reach out to each other, to comfort each other and to be there for each other. We got to know each other better every time we confronted what we were facing, shoulder to shoulder or side by side. As a city, all the agencies, local and central, got to know each other better as well. Who was good at what and how we could lift our game, both individually and collectively. Lessons were learned and embedded in our response plans, knowing all the while that we could never predict exactly what lay ahead. We did know a pandemic was possible. It was on our risk radar. We faced a small outbreak of H1N1, that's what the technical name for swine flu was, back in 2009 here in Christchurch. It was contained, we were prepared, and we are prepared this time. However, it's not the same. We can't reach out to each other in the way that we reached out to each other before. We need to look inside ourselves and we need to draw on all the inner strength that we can muster, and we need to ask our residents to do the same. We need to wish all the best to all the essential service personnel here at Council, in the health system, our emergency services, and to thank you for what you are doing, what you are going to be called on to do, for everything that you do to keep us safe. And we can keep you safe by staying at home and keeping our distance when we have to go out or when we want to go out. Our glorious parks don't cease to exist. They are there for everyone. Use them at this time, but keep 2 metres away from anyone you're not self-isolating with, anyone you're not living with through the lockdown period. But you're never going to be so far away that you can't call out hello, that you can't call out how are you, that you can't call out we're in the same boat, we're in this together, we can get through this and we will. And a wave and a smile, that's all it takes to communicate a feeling and a thought as we go through this time. And we think of our government and the enormous burden they carry at this time. Thank you for thinking of all of us as you take on this challenge of a generation. Kia kaha, be strong, kia ata whainui, and be kind. Can I invite the Chief Executive to say a few words about the situation and then to hand over to the leader of the incident management.
Yes, certainly. Would you mind if I stood? No? Is
You
that
can-
all right?
yep.
Thank you. Just to acknowledge that Jet McCulling has joined the meeting at 5:07 as well, just for your benefit, members. Undoubtedly, this is unprecedented times. The Mayor has very clearly outlined that. The Council, though, has been preparing. We stood the incident management team up at the end of January, and we have been preparing very carefully. And I think it's important for you to recognise that, in the sense that we are ahead of the game as a council. I am confident that those prepared work is well grounded and is thought through. And that's because of the experience that Christchurch City Council has gone through in its past. We've taken that learning to help us prepare for what is a very unusual and unprecedented situation. The report we bring to you today is something that I personally do not take lightly. I'm in local government because I fundamentally believe in the right of democracy, and I believe in the role that councillors undertake. But I also have to ensure that the authority can move forward and take decisions in a very fast-moving situation. So the recommendations which my team will talk you through are not thought of in a lightly manner, and they have been considered very carefully, but also with the ability as a council to ensure that we get through the crisis mode and move into preparedness to come back out. So we're also doing that thinking as well. So I'm not going to say any more than that and ask Mary and Ian to take us through the report, and I think a little bit more detail than we would normally do, Mary, because of the nature of the situation.
A couple of weeks, John Frizzell and his governance team, as well as legal services, have been looking at every scenario and every option to continue the role of councillors in their formal decision-making process. Because, as Dawn said, we know that is a fundamental of local government, and that's what it's all about. We have liaised with the local government sector across local government New Zealand and also DIA and Solgum to identify what solutions other councils are putting in place and how quickly the government can put in things in place, i.e. new legislation, rules in council, etc. So we have been trying to look at every avenue and every opportunity, and particularly, just like we have in our operations area, looked at every scenario of what could happen. So what has been proposed here today is allowing for every scenario. So it's saying that we are very clearly moving into an alert 4 process, alert 4 period where there are great restrictions on people. We have now evidence of community transmission, so we don't know how fast that will accelerate through our communities. And so we have are proposing something in this paper that actually allows for every scenario and things to progress to certain pages and then move back up again. So you will see from the paper, and I'll get Ian probably to work through the details of the paper, but what we have done in the paper is said, well, let's hope that we can have a council meetings and council making decisions as soon as possible. As soon as we can get to the stage where we're out of alert 4, we can actually have a council and have a council making the decisions, let's get there. But we are not at that place yet. That we need something in the interim and then something in the worst case scenario. You will see the interim is standing up a committee, and that is because a committee doesn't have the same legislative requirement of quorums in the room. So that idea of a committee allows for 2 people in the room, but then there is the next scenario of if we are not able to get 2 people in the room or key people who need to be need to be available sick, we do have the ability for the CE to make decisions. But both the CE and the Mayor were very clear that that was a way of actually managing the decision making in this environment with the legislation we currently have. So this report put in a safeguard around that to give you confidence that when the formal delegations were to the CE to make those decisions, she would not be making those decisions without consultation with the Mayor, who would consult with you. And as your sole employee, she would be very unwise not to take your suggestions. So that's why it's important that the delegation also rest with somebody that you can have 100% confidence in will follow your wishes, although they carry the delegations. So that's our thinking behind why we're moving this way, and also we are continuing to try to do and have staff available to still keep up our public obligations that we hold strongly, because we were at the forefront of some of these things, of actually making sure the public can still hear the meeting and get notes of the meeting, and things are available online as much as possible and available as possible. So that's the thinking. Probably if I hand over to Ian, do you want to might walk through the actual logistics of the paper with you.
Thank you, Mary. That quite neatly explains the context in which we're meeting today and considering this report. Just going through the recommendations, at 4, there's a recommendation that we resolve to revoke all delegations previously granted to the Council's committees and subcommittees, except the Audit and Risk Management Committee, which is dealt with later in the report. We are also proposing that the Council revokes all delegations previously granted to community boards, noting there will need to be a transition period before the delegations are restored once the emergency period is over, and staff will be bringing advice back to you on that. The next level is to establish an emergency committee for the duration of the emergency period, to be chaired by the Mayor and with the Deputy Mayor as Deputy Chair and all councillors as members. Now I think you're well aware why we are taking that approach in terms of quorum requirements. Committees require only a minimum of 2 for decisions to be made, whereas the Council requires 9. We propose delegating all the Council's decision-making authority to the committee, except those matters that the Council is unable to delegate under the Local Government Act, and they're set out in the report. The Emergency Committee will exercise its authority only if the Council is unable to meet due to a lack of a quorum, and given the lockdown, that is more likely than not. The Emergency Committee will be chaired by the Mayor and with the Deputy Mayor as Deputy Chair and all councillors as members, and as I said requires a quorum of 2, and that for a meeting to proceed the Mayor or Deputy Mayor must be available to chair the meeting. If the Emergency Committee is unable to meet, then the Council's decision-making authority is delegated to the Chief Executive, except those matters that can't be delegated. And the Council will require the Chief Executive to consult the Mayor prior to exercising her decision-making authority, and for the Mayor to consult councillors by way of a conference call before the Chief Executive finalises her decision, unless exceptional circumstances mean that such a consultation cannot occur. And in terms of the openness and transparency that has already been referred to, the Chief Executive will be required to make details of their decision-making publicly available in a timely manner and in a way that is open and transparent. There has been one question about what does a timely manner mean. It's doing something without wasting any time. It can be well-timed or doing something at the most appropriate moment. In terms of the Audit and Risk Management Committee, their delegations haven't been revoked, but the delegations will be to the chairperson, the deputy chairperson, the deputy mayor and Michael Rondell. And for that purpose, Michael Rondell's membership of the committee has been extended for the period in which these interim arrangements are in place. In terms of the live stream facility, if live streaming is not feasible due to availability of technical staff, the Council agrees to suspend the policy of live streaming the Council meetings and meetings of the whole, with a commitment to make a recording of Council meetings available as soon as possible after the meeting is held. We agree that all resolutions will take effect from 11:59 p.m. tonight, and further that the emergency delegations for decision making will be reviewed when the alert status, and this perhaps should be restricted to Christchurch because I understand that there may be different alert levels in different parts of the country. So if we could just add after status for Christchurch reverts back to level 2. And a mechanical provision, staff to give notice of cancellation of all scheduled meetings at the Council, committees including hearings, panels, subcommittees and community boards. So that in essence is what we are addressing today, and I'm open for any questions, as is Mary.
Before I come to questions, I just want to let everyone know that's watching, because I've had feedback that there is feedback in terms of the way this is sounding through the internet. So we've asked those at home or away from the building to keep their microphones off except when they're talking. I'm not sure how we've arranged for them to. Are they going to let you know when they have a question?
You can ask them when we're going through questions.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go through this bit by bit so that everyone gets a chance to ask the questions, so that I get an understanding of where the issues are, because I know councillors will have issues with some of these because it is all very challenging and new. So I will. So I just want to let people know that Catherine Chu, Melanie Coker, James Goff, Sam McDonald, and Jake McClellan are all present at the meeting by audio means. So they will be able to participate in the both the question time and also the debate. The next, and I just did pick up one of the questions, which was a quizzical response to 11:59 p.m. 24 March. If we wait until 11:59 p.m. 25 March, then we will have to hold the meetings that are scheduled for tomorrow. And so this will enable us to cancel those meetings and allow time to reflect on what decisions need to be made when. And I think that's probably a significant point, that, and that's what I said in my opening comments, is that a lot of the feedback that I've had today on an earlier draft really did highlight the challenges that we have in answering all the questions today. And because we have the lockdown period, it actually enables us to take some time to gather information, for the staff to prepare advice, and for us to be able to then consider that. We are all connected through Skype for Business, and ordinary conference call facilities. So we'll be able to meet with each other as often as we need, and in fact as often as we like. So, and I certainly will be reaching out to people constantly. You'll probably get annoyed with constant updates, but I want everyone to know what's going on. It's the same for the community boards as well. So I want to have a sort of a daily update for a written update for councillors and community board members, just so that we can keep up to date with each other and that everyone knows what's going on as best as we can under the circumstances. So, so I'll open it up for questions. So, sorry? Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, look, why don't I start with the 5 on audio? So if I just call out your name, if you have questions, can you fire away? So Catherine Chu.
No, I don't have any questions, thank you.
Melanie Coker.
Hi Leanne. I was just thinking, listening to this, what happens if the crisis gets so bad that the CE or you as the Mayor or the Deputy Mayor are unable to fulfil the roles here? I mean, you know, if it got to that point, is there a backup plan?
Yeah. So I'll hand over to the Chief Executive to respond to that.
So,
thank you.
Melanie, from the officer side, we have already instigated who will be the alternates in the situation if I become ill. And I've done it to 2 levels in the decision making. So if I become ill, Mary will become the acting chief exec. If both Mary and I aren't available and become ill, then that will be Brendan Anstis. In relation to the management team, I'm spreading work around in relation to recovery, which will be Leonie Ray, and the intelligence work currently linked into the IMT, into the incident management team, will be Brendan Anstis. So we're thinking through the consequences of preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
So,
Great. Oh, thank you very much.
and if I become unwell, then I will appoint Andrew Turner, who's Deputy Mayor. I'll appoint him as acting Mayor, so he would step into that role. But you do raise a good point, which is that we haven't thought through the next level, and I think it will be appropriate to do one more, and perhaps the easiest way to do that is what I've now seen other councils do. So I've seen a couple of other councils making decisions is to say the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor or their alternates, because then you've got both covered. And that means that you don't need to make the appointment right now. So the Mayor and Deputy Mayor or their alternates. So if the Deputy Mayor is not available, then their alternate will make the decision with the Mayor, and vice versa. Yep.
Yep. No, great. That sounds good.
Cool. All right. Amendment will be made. Have you got any other questions?
No, that's everything. I'm happy with the few resolutions that were changed from earlier, and I like adding in number 16, I think, and that's good. I agree.
Great. James Goff.
No questions from me, thank you.
Sam McDonald.
No, mine was only around that review period and being specific to Christchurch, but Ian's answered that, so no issue.
Good work, good, thank you. Jake McClellan.
Yep, 4 really succinct questions. Firstly, thanks to all the staff for what must have been a lot of hard work over the weekend. I just wanted to know what happens to matters that the community board can't delegate. I'm not sure how many matters that is, but and I'd also like to know what resourcing are we missing to be able to...
I'm trying to understand your question. So what matters the community board can't delegate?
That can't be delegated, that can't be taken from a community board. Yeah, so what, if any, matters are in legislation?
No, nothing. I can answer that question.
Nothing?
No.
Perfect. Done. And the second question was, what resourcing are we missing that are basically preventing us from continuing with community boards for a period of time?
Our staff have to work from home because we're going into a level 4 situation. So it's just literally, it's just that it's not that we haven't got enough resourcing. It's just that it is not possible to resource the council committees, the council, and all of the community boards. It is not possible to resource them during the lockdown period. So, and certainly there is time in the next 4 weeks where we have the lockdown, there is time to look at a number of the issues. So one of the councillors has raised a question mark about some of the small community grants that they have ready to go, and I'm going to propose when it comes back that simply is a delegation to the chair and the deputy chair of the community board to do. So by taking the delegations off the community board, it doesn't actually mean that the community board ceases to exist. It just takes away the requirement for the organisation to resource them. And if we took them off just for a short period of time, then even if it had to be extended, it would mean that the council staff would have to start organising for the reinstatement of the delegations, and that's why I've said that there needs to be a transition period. Sorry, Dawn.
Just to add to the Jake, and I think Mary will have something. I think the other thing I'm sure you will appreciate is, as your chief exec, I need to be in a position whereby I'm ensuring that non-essential staff are not in the building. And secondly, I have to be able to reallocate and redeploy staff to essential services where we may have issues where people have become ill. So I have to be able to have that flexibility around resourcing in the critical areas. Mary?
I was also going to raise that in Alert 4, we couldn't call a community board meeting and have 4 or 5, that's a quorum in the room at the time. So there cannot be meetings of community board meetings during Alert 4, because that's bringing 4 or 5 people together in a room. So it's as well as staffing, it's actually during Alert 4 we got to hold a meeting.
Yeah.
Right, and my final question.
Thank you for asking, because there's a lot of issues around this, which is why I sent an email to all the community board chairs this morning, and one of the staff members has spoken to each of them.
So my final question is about, will the matters that the community boards deal with, will they still come to full council in the same way that they would come to community boards, or is this a suspension of the work that they would otherwise do?
It's highly likely to be a suspension of the work that they do, unless there is a matter that is specifically requiring of a decision. So then, in the decision, but in my role as the chair of either the emergency committee or the council, I would be working with the chief executive to set the agenda for those meetings. And I would expect
That's my question.
I would expect to be consulting not only with the chairs of the relevant community board in an instant like that, but I will be consulting with the chairs of each of the committees that we have, that whose delegations are also, pulled back to the council for this period. I would be expecting to be talking to them about priorities in terms of decisions that do need to be made or could be usefully made during this time. So both are really open. I'm very open to it.
Great.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Well, let's just go around the table then. James?
My first question is, notice provisions for under 9, if the emergency committee is unable to meet, then we delegate to the CE. What are the reasons why we would be unable to meet? Is it partially notice provisions?
No, it is actually, it would be, the emergency committee would be unable to meet due to a lack of a quorum. So if we couldn't physically get 2 people in the building, that's why 2 is the number.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay. So,
Oh, sorry.
Unable to meet because they didn't make a quorum like we did, yeah.
I'm really happy for that amendment to be made. So if unable to meet due to the inability to provide a quorum, is it?
Unable to meet due to a lack of a quorum.
Due to a lack of a quorum.
Okay, so in the notice provision notice period is what for an emergency meeting?
Ian, here's a question you need to answer. What is the notice period for a meeting?
For these meetings, I know we've got emergency extraordinary meetings of 3 working days, or by resolution in not less than 24 hours. What are they for this?
Unless it's an extraordinary meeting, it would be the normal meeting times for a committee. Joe, what's your advice on that?
It would be 24 hours because they're not ordinary meetings because it's an emergency.
They're all extraordinary meetings, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so it'll be 24 hours.
24 hours notice.
Last thing is
I think that should be noted for the record so that people are really clear. So thank you for raising it. Somewhere about resolve that the emergency committee be chaired, etc., etc. Note that the notice period for calling such a meeting is 24 hours under the standing orders.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the last thing is, just with number 9, can we make the amendment to fit with an alternative for this chief executive as you discussed?
Because because it isn't my name. It's the chief exec role. Yeah. We will always have a person in the role.
Right.
So that's fine.
Okay,
We can stay as is.
Okay, me finished.
Yep. Sarah.
Thank you. Most of mine done already. It just occurred to me with Jake's question that is there any resourcing way or limit to community boards meeting informally, like a kind of briefing style by Skype with, say, the community governance manager or one of the team, just to talk through during this period how they can best support their communities, either via emails, those kind of things?
Look, I would certainly encourage community board members to do that themselves.
That's right, yeah.
But not to bring in community governance managers until there is an
maybe in a week or 2. I was thinking, for just board members, but in a week or 2.
But without the permission of the chief executive. So I think we're just going to have to pull back and allow a breathing space for the organisation. But I would encourage community boards to set themselves up to talk to each other regularly. I would absolutely encourage them to do so.
Cool.
Tim?
Mine have been answered. So.
Thank you. Anne?
Thank you. Just number 10, thinking about the exceptional circumstances. We have discussed some of those, but is that a legal term? Is that a term that how do we define exceptional circumstances?
Perhaps we could put that back on the chief executive. Delegates all the council's decision-making authority to the chief executive except when she believes there are exceptional circumstances that mean such consultation cannot occur, and leave it up to the Chief Executive to determine what those exceptional circumstances might be.
I can assure members that that terminology would be something that I would only use in the most exceptional circumstances. So not to create panic, because it wouldn't be appropriate, but if I took a real extreme, so if we had massive social unrest and I had to take decisions there and then to protect either facilities or staff or members, I would not be picking up the phone to ask the Mayor permission. I would undertake that action and then speak to her afterwards. But it would have to be really exceptional circumstances to force me into that position.
And secondly, just, our goal of having openness and transparency being paramount, and we've talked about reporting and getting people able to have recordings. Has there been any other thought about how else we can communicate what we're doing to our community?
So you'll know that we have a strong communications team established under the IMT, and we also are resourcing communications under the EOC, under the Civil Defence EOC, so that there is significant communication that has already been going out in terms of to both our staff and externally. We are also looking at what we can do by video clips, by other links and communication. So we are maintaining the full force of our communications team right throughout this period, with most of them working from home, and they will be looking at making sure that what the organisation is doing is still very clear and transparent, and also that things are well communicated to the community, and that will be by way of, will be some video, there will be some newsline stories. There are matters that actually even John's team are standing up some ideas where people can actually phone in to nominated numbers, and staff are there to answer questions. So there's a lot of work being put into what we can do to keep people connected, consulting and informing. So we're no longer able to hold workshops, we will have virtual workshops where people can contact staff directly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Phil Major.
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. This is a very well thought out paper in front of us, and I have no questions whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Kewen.
Yeah, mine have been asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Yanni Johansson.
Yeah, cool. To give some feedback, are we likely to get a more detailed briefing about how essential services are planned to be operated and what that covers?
Yes.
Because I don't want to ask questions tonight.
That's not part of the paper.
So when are we going to be briefed?
No, so we can brief you next week. Potentially we could arrange a Skype interview where at the moment you can imagine that we have 3,500 staff, and we're working at getting them all working from home or in lockdown secure areas, but we can certainly give you a briefing. Hopefully you've been getting the updates that will be providing that information to you, but we can give a full briefing. We will aim to do that next week.
Right, can I just clarify one essential service that I know Wellington has stopped, which is the recycling? Is recycling going to continue here, curbside recycling?
Yes, that was very clear in the message yesterday.
Great. And just noted in terms of the wage subsidies and the budget implications. So is there a process to look across the governance of our council organisations and companies in terms of our current strategic directions and SOIs, and how does that relate back to us at a governance level?
I did respond to that yesterday, Yanni. I think that it's really important that we allow the organisation to make some inquiries about eligibility and various other things before we get briefed on where they've got to. So I just think I'd like to leave that. It's not an element of the decision that we need to make today.
One thing that's missing in the paper is the budget implications. I note the Auckland City Council did make a budget provision to the chief executive to be able to do things. I have to say I am concerned about if there's going to be any redundancies from council staff.
Yanni,
So-
please don't create even more uncertainty when the chief executive has already informed staff, as you know, that for the lockdown period, we've got this as an organisation. So, but I'll let her respond because I'm not going to cross that boundary into the side of management.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
I guess I'm particularly interested in
No,
what's happening with
but
the
I
companies.
would like you to let the chief executive
government
say a couple of words, because I think it's important that we all be very careful about how we conduct ourselves and the questions that we ask, because we don't want to create any undue uncertainty for people who are facing an uncertain situation.
Yeah.
So to deal with probably all of the matters in one go, Yanni, absolutely we're doing this as a stage approach. When we briefed members last week, I said these are the areas we are concentrating on and we're going to make sure we get those right before we move into the next phase. So we are already working through, we're looking at the government advice in relation to the subsidy. That has changed from yesterday to today, and no doubt it may change again. So we're constantly reviewing what is coming out of government, because they clearly are working very hard just as we are. And as we get more detail, if we are able to apply for the subsidy, if the 30% rule doesn't apply, which is what the situation was previously, then we will clearly apply for that. In relation to our staff, I'm clear that currently we're in a lockdown and we will continue to pay staff. And as we move through this process, we will continue our thinking. Once I've come to conclusions that are relevant, I will talk with members about that. And then if I need to do further communications with our staff, I will do that. And I'm also talking to our neighbouring local authorities surround us to see what they are doing as well. In relation to our companies, I've already communicated with Paul that I want to have regular dialogue to understand exactly what that means for our companies and therefore for the local authority, and I will be enacting those on Friday once I know we're through this next phase of the period, and then carrying on those conversations as we go all the way through this lockdown phase. Recognising this report is to deal with all eventualities if that lockdown phase continues. So we are thinking about this not just as the immediacy, but what happens in 4 weeks' time, what potentially could happen in 3 months, what could happen in 6 months. And that's the only way we can approach it, in a precautionary, well thought through and calm manner. And I will bring information forward at each stage as I have it, but not until I'm able to be ready to do that.
In terms of what we're agreeing to today, the emergency committee would assume the finance and performance oversight of CCHL and the associated companies. So any decisions that were outside of the current strategic directions or statement of intent or letter of expectation would go in front of the committee.
That is correct.
Yeah, and okay, that's good. Just wanted to check in the Auckland one, which I thought was quite sensible. It was the people, so a quorum of 2, but that if the mayor or deputy mayor is unable to attend, then the quorum, or the attendees can select a chair. And I thought that was quite a sensible thing. So I just wondered if maybe that was something that we could put in.
You've dealt with that in
the
your
way
alternates.
that we've dealt with this is that at this stage, the mayor or deputy mayor or their delegates must be available to chair the meeting, rather than leaving it to the meeting, because we don't know what we don't know. We don't know whether in a situation you get 2 people turn up and neither the mayor or the deputy mayor is able to phone in for technical reasons or something, and you end up with a situation where decisions are not necessarily made that have the influence of the senior leadership of the council, trying to put it in a way that would indicate that there are certain circumstances where these things would need to be reviewed. And I think it's important that either the mayor or the deputy mayor or the person that they nominate is available to chair the meeting under these extraordinary circumstances. It would not apply to the council. Once we get back to a council meeting, it's back to the same rules.
And just the final question is in regards to the budget. So just want to be really clear with the chief, a question for the chief executive. Should we be making some budget provision now to enable, the cost of the response to be agile, flexible, and focused? And I'm just not quite sure how currently we're operating in terms of budgets, but would it be worth having some sort of resolution around that, enabling you to get on and do the things that you need to do in response?
So I don't feel restricted currently in relation to we are operating within our current budgets. So I do not feel the need. If I did, I would have put it into the recommendations. I would rather we were working through exactly what the implication is going to be and then come back with a considered response rather than a blanket approach.
Yeah. Even if it's an interim one. I'm certainly, my expectation is that when this committee, the emergency committee, meets, I'm going to aim for them always to be on a Thursday. So either the first, second or fourth Thursday of the month, or the third Tuesday of the month. So people can essentially pencil their diaries, and perhaps we might put a sort of a meeting invitation to everyone, just so that you have placeholders in there, so that you know that if I'm going to call a meeting, that I'm going to call it for one of those. But it will only be a Tuesday or a Thursday, but on the, well, in fact, we might grab both Tuesday and Thursday every week, with the exception of it won't be a Thursday on the third week. Yeah, so that will free up those that have got other requirements. So we'll just come around the table. Pauline?
Kia ora, thank you. Thank you for the work. Just a little bit of clarification around 16 again for me. So when we arrive at alert status back to 2 for Christchurch, and it says here we'll review it, would it not just click back to BAU? Do we need to make a conscious decision at this meeting to go back?
I think that, and this is what I've tried to explain to people, is that it's really essential that we think through the transition.
Yep.
So everything that, every decision that we make as a council, we've got to be thinking ahead, and every decision that we will make in this emergency period will be a decision that will impact on the city's ability to recover in the long term and the medium term. So the medium term and the long term. So we're in a serious phase, but we need to stay, even though we've got the threat of the situation that we're confronted with now, we actually also have to step back or step up and take that helicopter view and think of the long term. And so I think it would be a mistake to put the organisation under pressure of not knowing whether we were actually going to implement this or whether we would allow for a transition. So I think we're signalling to them, and very clearly in the document, that it is that we will be working out in the next few weeks the transitional arrangements that will take us back to full delegations. And it may be that the committee structure will take the delegations back more quickly, or it might be the community boards that take them back more quickly. It will depend on the circumstances. It has enabled me just this last week to be able to look very carefully at where certain decisions lie within the council committee structure that we've created. And so I've created a little bit of a review opportunity for us in this period as well. And I want everyone who's involved around the council table, everyone, to be thinking about how we could be improving the decision making for the long term as well. It's an opportunity for us to do some quiet reflection in that regard.
Right, thank you for that really full answer. That's really helped me. Also, just it's not in here, but when we're getting questions through from our residents again about all sorts of things, we're still okay using the Office of the CE to put those questions through, or do we kind of pull back a bit, or what?
Once we get back to a relative situation normal, but the chief executive and I will just keep an absolute. We're in lockstep on these issues, so we'll just make sure that we've got a really good and simple process. The reason I've taken it on at the moment is that it just enables the organisation to do things, and that they will know that I will triage and that I'll discuss things before I refer them on. So, you know, most of the questions that I'm getting through are very sensible, sound either suggestions or genuine queries, which I've been able to flick into the right part of the organisation.
Okay.
Can I just add to that, if your residents have service requests, can you please encourage them to use our call centre?
Yeah,
we're maintaining that 24 hours, 7 days a week.
That's good to know.
That deployed from people's homes, and it's important that you use that, because it then just clicks in and flows right through to our maintenance people and our maintenance contractors. So encourage residents to use our call centre for their issues and their service requests.
Absolutely, and I'll reinforce that, because I recall a situation where I'd noticed something myself. And then I actually rang the call centre because I couldn't make SnapSend solve work. And the call centre had so many calls that they knew the answer straight away. So I didn't have to bother anyone with it. So
I think it's good that we've highlighted that. I've always found them really effective. And just one last question with the annual plan. It is mentioned in the report, but where does it leave us with, so people will not be coming in personally to make deputations to that? Or is that an unfolding scenario depending on the time?
So we are hoping some decision is made around the annual plan at central government level about potentially extending times or doing something different.
Oh, really?
But we are not relying on that.
Right.
So we will actually allow people to be heard in a different way by we won't not coming in, but potentially Skyping in.
Same as what you said to him. Okay, I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy Chen.
Just two minor questions. First one, regarding to the COVID-19 emergency time period, all the committee agenda, if the business group, community group, or individuals, whether they are still have a concern, whether they are still eligible to make a deputation through our audio system or through our Skype system or not.
Sorry, I'm not competent to answer that question. So
whether people are still able to make a deputation.
Yeah, our meeting agenda is open to public.
So that will depend on what phase we're in and what ability we have. So we are looking at different ways that people can still contribute to it by either sending in a PowerPoint beforehand, recording beforehand, or phoning in. But actually some of that is going to be dependent on the ability and how and our live streaming people for the committee and how long that they are able to provide that service, but also the technology. So we're working through those scenarios at the moment.
And also the other point too, Jimmy, is that we don't actually know what the government amendment to the legislation or the legislative requirements are going to be in the meantime. So we're expecting that, you know, I mean, the Minister has said in her letter that changes are imminent. So it won't take long for them to pass a law, and I think Parliament is being pulled together tomorrow, as I recall, from the Prime Minister's comments yesterday. And if that's the case, then we may be having the discussion beforehand, but I can assure you that it is one thing that I'm turning my mind to. One of the things that I think we're going to have to go without in the meantime is the public participation, which is the 5-minute section. but I believe that we'll have to find a mechanism for deputations, and it may be that they're not provided in an oral sense, but that they're provided in writing with a. I mean, they could be a short video if people wanted to send a video through. So we'll work through all of those issues about the how, but we will come back and it will be a decision of the emergency committee or the chief executive in consultation with myself and the deputy mayor and all of the councillors.
Yeah, although this emergency committee, the quorum is the two members, councillors, but mayor, deputy mayor, chair meeting. But whether, if we are still, to be eligible to partake of those committee meeting.
Yep, the emergency committee is made up of all councillors. All councillors. And the reason for the two is simply because 2 people have to be present in the building as opposed to 9 people having to be present in the building. So we're just managing for the eventuality. It doesn't mean that if it is safe for everyone to come in, that everyone can't come in. They can. So it will simply be a committee rather than rather than the council, but it will have all the decision making of the council.
Thank you so much. So sub questions. Because the concern leading time, to receive those meeting agenda. Like for instance, today, my Wi-Fi at home didn't work fair. Sometimes a little bit difficult, to review those the meeting agenda or information, etc. So I just want to know whether it's possible, we still can receive those meeting agenda beforehand. Yes.
Yeah, it is certainly my intention to provide as much notice as possible. So the legal requirement for calling a meeting is 24 hours, but it certainly will be my intention to call a meeting with sufficient notice so that we can guarantee that people get the information that they require and are able to read it and analyse it before the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mike Davidson?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions now. I guess just for clarification, so alert level 4 means there'll be no emergency committee meetings?
That's right.
And so I guess and obviously there may be some changes around actually what it means to be present at a meeting, which should hopefully solve something. But I guess the issue could be like this is now set for 4 weeks, that level, but it could obviously be extended. And at what point do we say actually this is an essential service in terms of having a meeting to make decisions as a governance body, and actually where we do actually have to come in and start having some meetings and having 2 people present to actually make it?
Well, there are some decisions we can't delegate, and we will be required to make a decision to set a rate by the 30th of June.
Assuming that the government doesn't change the rules.
Unless the rules aren't changed. But if the rules are changed, I mean, I don't mind if you want to put a time frame for us to come back and discuss this. So, I mean, we could schedule a meeting, 4 weeks from the lockdown. So whatever Thursday that is. And
only be able to hold it though, because we couldn't actually ask a meeting of get sort of 25 people here in a room during a lockdown period.
Okay, so maybe we could ask. No, that's right. What I'm saying, I'm perhaps not putting it right. What we need is an obligation to seek, or for the chief executive to prepare advice, to be, I don't know, at the end of the 4-week period. So at least at the end of the 4-week period, you're getting specific advice formally referred to you as a noting paper, so at least it can be published on an agenda and publicised. so the meeting could be actually called in that regard, the agenda could be published, and if we can't meet, then it would just fall over for a want of a quorum. But we could still then set up the conference call, Skype for Business facility, and discuss it in detail.
So I think it would be very appropriate for myself and my team to be giving a position statement at the end of the 4-week period, because I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea what is actually going to happen at that point, whether it will be extended, whether it'll be pulled back. I might have a view on that, but it wouldn't be appropriate to express that at this time.
Yep. No, that's fine. Also, I just noticed on some of the committees you got listed up there, you don't have the Council Runanga Committee.
Yes, and that's because I took it off the list because what I wanted to do was to simply not put it on the list. So I'm not revoking the delegations, but what I want, actually I completely forgot about it, so thank you very much for raising it. The reason I took it off the list is that I'd already spoken to Te Marito, who's the co-chair with me, about how we were going to handle the fact that it was already set up as a meeting this week. Was it this week?
Yeah.
Yes. And so we agreed not to hold it this week, so it has gone from our programs. And what I want is a delegation for it simply to be suspended until called together by the co-chairs. So it's just some wording. I'm sorry, thank you very much for raising it. I completely forgot to go back to it. I took it off the list of committees because I thought we can't take the delegation back to council because it would be entirely inappropriate to do so. Well, it wouldn't be possible to do so. Can you work out some wording down the end? Right.
I've got one
yes,
last
one
question,
other?
actually, for Mary. You said, Jared, when you were talking that we now have community transmission. I'm assuming you mean that in a national sense, not actually a local sense.
Yeah. The government has accepted that because they can't track or connect to, well, is it 4 cases now, to international travel then.
But those are all in the North Island?
They're all in the North Island at this stage. Yeah. Andrew.
Great, thank you. 3 things, if I can, and I think they may well have been covered, so it might just be for clarification. We referred earlier, or the Mayor referred earlier, to the Minister, to the letter from the Minister of Local Government. If existing arrangements are changed, either through the state of emergency or through some other government process, so that there isn't, for example, a need for a chair to be physically present or for a quorum to be physically present, this paper allows for us to meet as depending, quorum of 2 for the emergency committee or quorum of 9 for council. This paper allows for us to meet remotely as either of those bodies if we're able to, doesn't it, with those changes?
So they refer to being unable to meet if you don't get a quorum. If those rules change, then clearly the likelihood is that you can meet, or the body can meet, whether it's the council or the
that answers the question.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, so that's another way that things could be put back to a more normal situation because the rules change, not necessarily because we go back to threat level 2. Yeah, no, that answers that. That's fine.
Be potentially in the extra recommendation about advice from the CEO within 4 weeks, or if there's a legislative change prior to that, we'll word it. So it's 4 weeks at the longest, but if there's a change beforehand, we'll...
So does that require a change to the resolution?
It's not up there yet.
Right, okay.
It's the one about the CEO providing advice.
Again, just thinking of all the different ways that this could play out. All right, my next question refers to the Audit and Risk Committee. And as it stands at the moment, under threat level 4, and with the current quorum requirements, the Audit and Risk Committee wouldn't be able to meet.
It has
And of course, because we don't know when any of those things will change, and again, the Audit and Risk Committee has got specific responsibilities, particularly around the annual plan, the annual report, those sort of things.
So it's
This is delegating decision making to 4 named people.
yeah.
That's right.
So it's not.
So it is
Also, not meeting as a committee,
not meeting
but just
as a
the 4
committee.
people.
We're delegating the decision making.
to 4
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So those decisions
actually
can be made with
recommendations.
those 4 people remotely.
Yes,
Correct.
Yep,
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So that
Yep.
answers my question. That's
Yep.
good. Now, there has been some talk, particularly in some overseas jurisdictions, about the way that, you know, we're going into level 4 at 11:59 tomorrow. And then we might come back to level 3, and it's possible we might go to level 4. We might come up to level 2 and then go back to level 3 and level 4. And that might be deliberate or it might be circumstantial. Presumably this paper, when it refers in resolution 16 of a review, we could at that time make new arrangements that took account of the fact that we might at that time be at level 2, but anticipating that we may possibly end up back at level 3, level 4 before we came back up to 2 again.
Yes.
Yeah, so this paper allows for that scenario.
Yes, because exactly the descriptor, which is why it doesn't say move back into normal business when we get to level 2.
Yeah.
We need to review the situation, assuming we move back, because I think it's highly likely that we will be moving between levels for a period.
A dance between levels for some time.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can we...
Additional question? Do our external people have any additional questions?
No.
Okay. Well, look, I'm.
Yes, I had one. Sorry.
Yes, go.
Hey, I just if the media, if we're not live streaming these meetings, are the media allowed to come to our extraordinary meetings?
Sorry. If.
The question is, with the lack of a live stream facility, is it permitted that media can attend?
Well, if it's a public, if it's open to the public, it is open to the media. But it won't sit unless it's able to be
It won't
open.
sit in alert 4, for example. It wouldn't sit when the media in lockdown. They can't-
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But at level 4, the media is an essential service, so they presumably would have the ability to attend
No, but-
even in that situation.
But you know, tragically, it's not essential that they report the council meeting. The information can be made available to them. I mean, it's not. It's. We'd have to come back to you on that one. I can't imagine that the emergency committee will meet in a situation that the media could not attend as well, because it would have to be at least 2 councillors present. So if 2 councillors can be present, then I imagine that the media would be able to be present as well. I can't imagine a situation where it wouldn't be a public meeting.
Okay.
Unless the rules change and everybody was meeting virtually.
Yes, unless the rules change and everyone was meeting virtually, in which case creating I mean, we can record a meeting as we go, but actually live streaming when we're all working from home is obviously going to be a little bit more challenging, so I don't know that technology would allow us to do that.
So I think the principle that I'm sure we are all absolutely aligned to is open and transparency. So I think the principle should be that the media can attend unless there is a specific reason why they can't, which would have come no doubt out of government requirements.
Yeah.
And I think we must work on the basis of this thing is changing not just by the day but by the hour.
That's true.
Great.
Just following on the openness and transparency, there has been some concern that, for example, a decision about Ngāpunawai, and the Netzel facility is at the moment out for feedback, and concerned that that could be, sort of rushed through, or in some way, because of the time pressures on that particular decision. So I'm just wondering how we can reassure, can we reassure our public that that wouldn't happen?
So that's a matter covered by the Resource Management Act, so we are coming back with some advice around whether we need to hold hearings and how we do it. We would not be rushing anything through. It's not covered by the Local Government Act, and its consultation required. It's covered by the Resource Management Act.
Thank you.
I think it's a Reserves Act, actually, sorry.
Excellent. That's reassuring.
Right, so I think we know that staff are going to be working through each of the different consultations that are occurring at the moment. We know that we're in the, there are various hearings and various things, and getting the information together, assessing the statutory environment for each one of them, and providing very publicly facing reports, and also communicating that to the areas that are affected, and councillors can play an important role in that regard, in making sure that the information is distributed to the people who are particularly interested, including those that have already made submissions or expressed an interest. Yanni.
Following on the feedback I just sent an email around with a suggested additional resolution, and I think it picks up to the point that Anne was making. I think it's really important we give some clarity to our community about whether we're deferring non-urgent decisions through this extraordinary time.
Yanni,
a lot of people's minds are not going to be on this.
If you want to decide, if you want the Chief Executive a notice to decide what's non-urgent without reference back to anyone, I personally think that it will be obvious, but I have asked the chairs of particularly the committees of the whole so far, but it will be others, because some of them had agendas this week, so I've been in communication with them and I'll be doing this more formally at some point, but a request that you go through all of your agendas, your forward work program, and you start to lift stuff that perhaps people could be getting on with at home if they're not referred to essential duties. So we're looking at different ways of ensuring that the wheels of the organisation continue to spin in an appropriate way. So,
but Mayor, may I just add to that? What I would not want you to be doing is therefore individual members contacting staff members through our email directing their work programme.
No,
that would not be appropriate.
All through me at the moment. So this is not a grab for power, but it is an absolutely necessary conduit. My right-hand person is the Chief Executive, and her and I will be in daily contact, probably more than once a day.
Yes.
Sorry, just so I'm clear. So non-urgent work will continue with discretion of the Mayor and the Chief Executive?
No, Yanni, we are not making the decision today. It is highly unlikely that any non-urgent work will happen in the next 4 weeks. I can assure you of that, but I'm not prepared to say that a phrase, all non-urgent decisions will be deferred, when there may be a variation to anything. I did not know on Monday morning that we would be facing a lockdown, absolute undertaking, that this is one of the issues on my mind, but I'd rather not have a resolution that ties us into an argument now as to whether something is non-urgent or not.
Mayor, if I could just add in terms of communications as well, just to reiterate for members, because I know you know this, but with us also going live streaming, we clearly have got a very good comms service. They have been working exceptionally hard, along with many other people in our organisation as part of the IMT. We have been providing strong internal and external communications. I would stress to you, as members, you are receiving that information on a daily basis. Please make sure you continue to read it. I have suspended my own note that I do weekly, deliberately in keeping that as part of the COVID-19 work, because you then only need to read one thing. So it helps you, I would hope. I would stress, please, that you encourage our public to look online, use our website, and to look at our Newsline blog, because again, we're keeping all of that information in one place. And I'm sure if you've put your radio on, you will have heard the adverts that the City Council have been placing in many different guises, print, radio and billboards, communicating the key messages out, and we will continue to do that on a daily basis. So I hope that you are finding that information helpful, and we are keeping it in plain English, so that it isn't complicated or language that is of a technical nature. We're trying to keep it simple and clear.
Thank you. So I just had an email through that says that tomorrow there will be a special sitting of the House, the Parliament, with a scaled back number of MPs to vote on the adjournment motion, which is expected to pass. The government will move to adjourn Parliament for 5 weeks and will not sit again until April the 28th, regardless of New Zealand's COVID-19 alert status. A new special committee chaired by National Leader Simon Bridges has been set up and will have the power to interview those involved with the government's COVID-19 response. So this is a very appropriate response from our Parliament. So that I just thought I'd update you before I open it up for debate.
Can I just make a couple of...
yes, you may make a couple of points. I haven't forgotten you, Ed.
Oh, I thought you had.
Sorry.
I was bereft. My advice would be to put in Resolution 10. The Chief Executive finalises her decision unless she believes there are exceptional circumstances mean such consultation cannot occur. I think that just cuts down the element of uncertainty, if you like, as to who makes that call.
Yep.
And the only other possible change that could be made, I just wonder whether we couldn't clarify the delegations that we're dealing with here with a note that the Chief Executive and officer delegations that are currently in place are unaffected by these resolutions and will remain with the Chief Executive and officers as applicable.
Yeah,
I think that much.
That's helpful.
Could we pop that in down the bottom?
It's coming your way now.
Did you email that to...
I did. I emailed it to you guys, but not to Joe.
Okay, well, I will...
You doubt?
That was in the earlier print that somehow disappeared.
What time did you email it? I've almost found it.
It's all right. It's got it going up now. There it is.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I will. I'll leave them to write that up. But the understanding is that last one is noting that the current delegations that are in place are unaffected by these resolutions. So the staff continue to have their full delegations as per previous arrangements. All right. So I will open it up for debate, and perhaps if I start with the people who are on the... oh, sorry, I would like to move it. Do I have a seconder? Andrew. Right. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll start with the audio attendees, and you'll have to stay online until the conclusion of the debate and the vote. I'm sorry, but that is a requirement for your vote to count. And what I might do is have a vote at the end so that we make it clear. Thank you. So there will be a vote at the end. So I'll just call on you to see if you wish to speak. There is no requirement to speak. Catherine Chu. Hello? Is Catherine...
Leanne, she's just texting to say she can't hear. So I don't know if she's dropped out. just literally this minute.
Maybe you'll come back to her.
Okay, I'll come back to her. Melanie Coker.
No, I didn't really want to say anything too much. I just, I think this is a good measure, and let's hope that we can use it for as little amount of time as possible. And I appreciate all the work that the staff have done to put this together.
Thank you. James Goff.
No need for me to debate, thanks.
Sam McDonald.
No, nothing from me either.
Jake McClellan.
No, nothing from me.
Is Catherine Chu back? Okay. James Daniels.
No debate.
Sarah Templeton. Tim Scandrett.
Just like to say thank you to the Chief Executive and the staff for all the work that they've done. These are extraordinary times. We had pressures on our own families and ourselves, so just remember to just lead from example and be kind. Cheers.
Thank you. Anne?
Yes, I just want to express gratitude for the work that's been done and the big shoulders that we have here. Shoulders that have had to carry an awful lot of stuff in the last wee while, and must be getting bigger and bigger by the minute, I think. And so thank you for the work that has been done, and it's a time to think about what our community needs from us. I think they need to know that essential services, for example, rubbish collection will continue. They need to know that they can talk to the organisation here, and to hear that there is a 24-hour call centre is really fantastic. They need to know that they can ask questions about things like, how do I pay my rates if I'm not working or not being paid? They need to know that they will be informed by us about what we're deciding, and that will be done, and that what happens here will be transparent and open. And I think they also need to know that we are committed to good government, as I think the Mayor said at the beginning. So that means clear, united direction that will build trust and certainty in these very uncertain times. So very much in support of what we have before us.
Thank you. Catherine Chu, are you there now?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Did you want to say anything in the debate?
No, I'd just like to thank all the staff and you, Leanne, as well, for all your work in this. And yeah, but no debate from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil Major?
No debate. I'm happy. Thank you.
Aaron Kewen?
Yeah, having been at the council before when we had a similar incident post-quake, I feel that the organisation's well placed to deal with a situation like this. I like the way that we're moving forward. It also shows support for what the government's doing, and I currently believe that we do as a country really have a chance to stamp this out and get on top of it. A number of countries have done. I know the media is dominated by stories of the countries that aren't doing well, but there's a lot that are, and so let's look to the positives. And I really implore people to hunker down in the lockdown period and just stay away from other people. The Mayor's already said it, but that is the key, is that lockdown period will be a defining moment in our country's history. And so let's get on with it. Let's make the most of the time with our families and take care of one another and be kind.
Thank you. Yanni Johansson.
Thanks. I just wanted to echo what Councillor Kewen has said. Sadly, this city is well familiar with tragedy and disaster, but out of that comes lessons learned and ways to do things that look after people. And so I just want to stress at this time, although there's a lot of questions that we still don't have answers to, we are in the most extraordinary time in probably some of our lifetime. So I think the really key thing is that we are flexible and agile as an organisation, and we enable our staff and our city to focus on the most important thing, and that is the well-being of our community and of our people. And so I look forward to these resolutions being adopted. We've touched on the importance of transparency and communication, and I would just make the plea that there's a lot of people in our city that don't have access to technology. Let's make sure that we know that those communities also need to be communicated with. And what we learnt through the earthquake was good old-fashioned signs on lampposts and letterboxes with flyers was a really important way. So things in writing in simple English with key contact information for people that need help is really critical, and I'm sure that our staff are aware of that. But I just wanted to also echo the thoughts are with all those people who have got family that are going to be impacted on what's going to happen. We certainly, I know council staff are no different to other members of the community, and it's really important that we acknowledge the huge pressure that people will be under in the weeks ahead. And I just wanted to, again, show my appreciation, as others have done, for the work that our staff are doing, but also the work that they will be tasked to do. It's not going to be an easy time, but we should stand together in solidarity and support each other through it. Thank you.
Thank you. Pauline Cotter.
Thank you. Great words. Hard to follow that. I totally agree. At the risk of sounding like a cokehead, let's do the right thing. We've all got to do the right thing now. It's really important. But it is challenging times, but we are all here. We're all accessible. 941 8999 is the number to ring council if anyone has any questions. It's just good to know that support is there. And in my time here, I still am so gobsmacked at the incredible people that we have as staff here. It's just amazing. And local government is not just a job. Local government is a commitment. Local government is part of your aroha. So I just want people to know that we are all here for them. They can ring me anytime, and all the other councillors. We have IT. Things aren't grinding to a halt. They're just a bit different for a wee while, so we are here. So, and thank you for all the rapid work that's gone into this. It's an incredible resolution, so I'll be supporting today.
Thank you. Jimmy Chen.
Yeah, yes. Because first I would like to acknowledge Mayor and CE and also staff to establish this draft, the proposal. That's very important. One aspect, we all recognize this kind of COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. This kind of very serious, particularly now we are level 3, probably tomorrow night will be the midnight will be the level 4. Many is everyone, no one is exception. Everyone need to be self-isolation, not contact or engage with other people. So but we are all elected members. How do we can continue to keep and also to be more functioning in this emergency time period? We still can be functioning, and also we can make a group the good quality of decision. Benefit to the people, to the city. That's very, very crucial. So this proper in response to this the government formal announcement. Now we enter into this emergency. Maybe will be announced soon for the kind of national state of emergency, etc. But I agree with the Pauline, particular because. Our community, we can see that a lot of elderly people live alone, lonely. These people, how do we can overcome the external environment, and also to prevent the form, we ignore. Probably we will get a kind of confirmed cases. It's how to keep balance. We can give them the help, the practical help. This we still need to more think about it. Particularly the winter time. Time will come here. We need to more think about it. So even this particular situation, I still prefer like our 941 899 information for our email system or some other digital advice. We can be quickly respond to the people's need. This is my concern, but we have to working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Davidson.
Kia ora. No debate, thanks.
Andrew Turner.
Thank you. A week ago, and that seems a long time ago now, we were briefed on the organisational response as it stood at that time, and we discussed a number of related issues. And at that time, I talked about the role of the elected council in particular, and I presented that in terms of 4 different pillars. One of which was to amplify the message from the ministry and from our own chief executive. One of which was to take a precautionary approach. One of which was to lead by example as individuals, as an organisation. And the fourth, and one of the most important, was to know that our chief executive, and therefore the organisation, has got this. Now, things have clearly moved on since then, but I think those considerations remain almost exactly the same. So pillar one, amplifying the messages from the Ministry of Health and now other government agencies, and our own chief executive, and in fact now the Prime Minister. This paper and discussions we've had this afternoon are consistent with that, and there have in fact been some good reiterations in this meeting that reinforce the previous and ongoing communications from our chief executive and from the organisation. Pillar two, taking a precautionary approach. It's exactly what we did when we closed our facilities that weekend, and it's exactly what we're doing now with the various considerations in this paper. Pillar three, leading by example. The work that's been done and the way that we're doing our work in a way that anticipates a number of possible future outcomes is exactly that. Avoiding an expectation that people will need to unnecessarily leave their homes in a lockdown period, or an expectation that there would be unnecessary personal contact that would be out of line with any of the alert levels, and in a way that respects staff and in a way that respects the need for an eventual transition. And been confident that we've got this. In an unprecedented and extraordinary circumstance, I do believe that we have, and I know the people of the city will be feeling nervous and uncertain about what's to come. And I know that citizens will be looking to council along with other agencies and organisations for confidence and for leadership. So this situation is completely unprecedented and extraordinary. And whilst it feels similar in some ways to the earthquake period, in other ways it feels totally different. I've got the confidence that I feel I need, and the way that we've handled this meeting and the answers that I've heard this afternoon have actually added to that confidence. So I'd like to thank everybody that's been involved in working in a way that means that we can and we do have that confidence. Everyone that's got an eye on the challenges of the coming weeks, but also that all-important eye on the future, which will come after this period. So thanks for the work that's gone into this paper. Thanks for the work that's gone into the preparedness that we've heard about this afternoon, work that's been going on for some time, the work that I know will go on during the lockdown period and beyond, and I know that we'll secure that same confidence in the future. So thanks to the Chief Executive, but also to everyone from this organisation and from other agencies that will provide that confidence to us as leaders, but more importantly, to the people of the city as we go through what inevitably is going to be a challenging period.
I want to repeat the thanks that I gave at the beginning to the Chief Executive and to the staff. I called out the incident management leader, the person who's led the incident management team since the end of January. I want to acknowledge you, Mary Richardson, because you've done an extraordinary job and you're going to be called on to do a lot more. And I really want to express to you how grateful we all are. And to the other members of the team that make these council meetings possible and provide us with advice and support. But Mary, you've got a really big task ahead of you, and I want you to know that what this council is going to decide now is that we're with you, we're backing you, and we're fully behind you. You know, we've got your back. So thank you very much for that. I want to also pay tribute to all of my councillors, because that was the most fulfilling meeting that I've ever chaired as part of my time on council, or actually in any time in Parliament. Although I will say that in parliamentary terms, when Parliament sets aside its political divides and focuses on an issue, I remember after September 11 such a debate as we've had today, just the thought and care that went into it, and even in the questions that were asked, every single one of you was focused on making sure that we were delivering what we needed to, so that we could step back, rise above and look to our organisation to deliver. And I think it is times like this that bring out the very best of what we are capable of, and you have made me incredibly proud to be the Mayor of the city right now. Now, at times like this though, before I get completely emotionally wound up in the moment, we need to be able to continue to smile. We need to share that sense of fun and enjoyment of life with each other as much as we can. And for me, that moment was watching Neil Diamond with his rewrite of Sweet Caroline. Hands, washing hands, reaching out. Don't touch me, I won't touch you. And I thought, for a moment, you know, capturing for a moment just that sense of how you can turn any situation into a moment of frivolity and humour, just to remind us that the one thing that this demonstrates is our humanity, and it is that sense of joy and optimism and hope that makes us human, it makes us who we are. So I'm very confident that our city will come through this. They're going to need all the support they can get. The government is offering all the support that they can give. We are offering all the support we can give, and we're relying on an incredible staff of our Christchurch City Council to work collaboratively with all of the other essential services to make sure that the city comes through. So thank you very much. And on that note, I will ask for the polling of the councillors for the vote. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor?
I'm in favour.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
Councillor Chu?
Yes.
Councillor Coker?
Yes.
Councillor Cotter? Councillor Daniels? Councillor Davidson? Councillor Galloway?
Yes.
Councillor Goff?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson?
Yes.
Councillor Kewen?
Yes.
Councillor MacDonald?
Yes.
Councillor Major? Councillor McClellan?
Aye.
Councillor Scandrett? Councillor Templeton? Carried unanimously.
That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Could I invite James Daniels to close the meeting for us?
Kia ora tātou. Just before I do the karakia, just want to acknowledge thanks to the Mayor and the CE for acknowledging the passing of my mother late last week. One thing is that she was very well known in the Christchurch area. She passed away up in Rotorua. Due to the extraordinary situation we're in, she had a swift and small tangi up in Rotorua, but Katerina Daniels, or Car Daniels, was well known down here. So you've got to remember that she is where it began for me. So that extraordinary circumstances brought us to this emergency meeting, and I finish it with a karakia that says ka whakairia te tapu kia wāte ai te ara, tūruki whakataha ai, whakamaua kia tīna, haumie huie tai kia. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you. And on that note, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very, very much.
And members, please be